How's it going? Welcome to the fourth video of the Fear Street Netflix film trilogy. Yeah, that's right. Trilogy. 3 films, 4 videos. Makes sense, right? Basically, as I said in the last video, they split part 3, 1666 into 2. So you also had 1994 part 2, which is what I'm going to talk about here. So let's jump in. I love the way these films start. They're just like great. So at the end of the last film, finished with Dina coming back into the present and a police cruiser turning up. It is Sheriff Good. He pops out and he's talking to Josh, and Dina just grabs Josh, pulls him away, and Good's like, whoa, Josh, no, don't go with her. She's crazy. She needs help. No, Josh, come back. We'll help her, I promise. And Dina sort of says to Josh, like, no. It's baddie. It's him. Get him. To which my point would be, how does Sheriff Good know that she knows? That bit doesn't get answered at all. Like, the reason he knows to go there is because at the end of 1978, Ziggy phones for the sheriff and has obviously told him, like, hey, you know, we can end this now. Like, we couldn't end it 20 years ago, but now we've sorted it. We've got the bones, we've got the hand, sorted, it's all done. So presumably he sort of says to her, like, okay, fair enough, I'll go help them out. Like, you know, they're just kids, like, I got their backs. Obviously goes out there to be like, no. But what I don't understand is no one's ever, as far as I know, no one's ever, you know, no one's ever said to him or any of his relatives or anything like, hey, don't let the hand and bones get back together. How are you supposed to know what goes on there at all? You know, as far as everyone's concerned, they think that it will end the curse, just putting the bones back together. Obviously, we now know that's not true because she's not a witch, but how does he know that she knows that it's him? It's just a bit sort of like, surely he could just be like, hey, what are you guys doing? They're like, oops. And then obviously then it would be all on Dina to either literally run away and say, no, you're evil. Or to be like, play along and be like, oh, well, you put the bones together, so now the curse is over. Like, hey, it's all good. Like, you know, and then we'll sort you out another time. But yeah, it's just a bit sort of like, oh, okay, so, you know, it's gone from 0 to 100 very quickly in that she knows it's him. He knows that she knows. And it's just like, okay, fair enough. And the perfect sort of analogy is good is evil. And it's just like, I like it. Good little tagline. They then steal the sheriff's car. Seems normal. Their car's right there, but no, we'll take the sheriff's car instead. Why? There is then a radio announcement, because obviously Sheriff Good phones it through like, hey, someone's just nicked my car. It says they're armed and dangerous. They carry on in this police cruiser. They don't ditch it at all. And they leave the lights going. So they're just driving around town, flashing blue and red lights. Every cop's now out looking for them. Like, hey, there's an armed and dangerous, you know, couple running around in a sheriff's car. Like, they're burning red lights and everything. And just no one pays any attention. It's like, right, okay, sure. That makes sense. But then sort of understand now why Shady Side are getting really bum end of the deal and Sunnyvale's all good. Because obviously it's the Goods have been doing it to, you know, oh, we want Sunnyvale to be really nice. And I'm going to pick that Shady Side. They can get possessed and apparently go on a killing spree. Presumably because that's what the devil does. Like, it's not just like, I'm sacrificing you so that I can become sheriff. It's I'm going to sacrifice you, but because the devil's evil, you're probably going to go and kill like 7 odd people. So, my bad. But it does then obviously bring in the 1978 quote from Nick when he said to Ziggy, like, I've let so many people die tonight, but I'm letting you die. And she's like, well, it's not your fault. Like, you know, you're just a counsellor, you're doing the best. But it's like, well, no, I kind of put Tommy's name. I kind of got him possessed. Like, it's kind of totally my fault. Whoops. My bad. And the same with Solomon in 1666. Like, you know, my brother died. Cindy / Abigail / Ziggy / Constance, like, you know, her sister died and everything. And it's just like, and also one point that I picked up sort of way after I'd first watched the end of the 3rd film is in the first film in 1994, the Sunnyvale football team are called the Devils and the Shadyside football team are called the Witches. So obviously Shadyside Witches makes sense. Now the Sunnyvale Devils make sense because it's like, oh, because like the mayor and stuff are devil worshippers and deal with the devil. Right, nice. So that was a good tie, and I did like that. And Dina and Josh work out that the reason that these ghost killers and all these past killers keep coming back is because they don't want you to know the truth. When you're alive, you're just possessed and just killing people for the fun of it. You're only going after Shadysiders because, you know, Sunnyvale rules. But when you're a ghost killer, you've got the one objective. You'll set your sights on, you know, Sam and Ziggy and now Dina. Apparently, because yeah, the blob goes just mental. the brain blob thing, the underground, which presumably is the devil incarnate on Earth, just goes absolutely batshit and starts spawning killers. It makes Sam's sort of still chained to Ziggy's radiator. She's going crazy, but they pick up Ziggy. They explain to Ziggy, like, look, it's Nick. He did it. And she sort of has flashbacks to obviously him being really nice to her in 1978. And it's like, damn. They then go and pick up Martin, who is the janitor from 1994, who Josh helps to escape from police custody, which has also never been said. Like, he's just sitting on his porch smoking. And it's like, surely if you escaped your handcuffs, presumably escaped prison, wouldn't the police have been after you for that? Okay, fine, whatever. And Josh turns around and says, what's up, bro? Want to help us kill the sheriff? And he's just like, I'll grab my coat. And he's just like, all right, that escalated for you, you know, putting your hands on your head straight away. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't do anything to, yeah, sure, I'll kill someone. Why not? And for a lot of escalation in this film, they end up going to the mall, which is kind of the only purpose for Martin being there, because he's the janitor at the mall. He understands how, you know, the shutters work and stuff. So it works, but it's kind of like, does he need to be there? Like, pretty certain they could have worked out how to use the shutters and they'd have probably found the breaker switches. But fair enough, you know, it's a bit of a callback and an extra character, just add a bit to it. So, okay, fine. They decide to use the same blood plan as they did in 1994. Like, you smear Dina's blood now because they're after Dina. Smear her blood around and they'll just follow these trails. Like, they won't bother with anyone. So that's the plan they come up with, and they decide, you know, we'll lead them all into different stores and then we'll shut the shutter on them, trapping them. Great. And they're no worries then. The fact that, you know, they sort of turn into blob people and coming back to life like Stranger Things sort of vibe. Maybe they could do that themselves and sort of like squeeze through the chain fence and stuff, but that's not thought of and doesn't appear to happen, so whatever. And then they decide to, instead of sort of leaving them there and then somehow killing the sheriff, it's like, well, they could do it. So Ziggy remembers one of the first last interactions between her and Nick was when she was mixing the blood and the paint to look like blood to sort of pour it all over Sheila, who was a camp tormentor. And Nick sort of says, oh, it looks like blood. Oh, you're going to carry her and things like that. And there's that bond of like, you know, carry. So Ziggy turns around and is like, we'll carry him. And it's just like, okay. So again, nice callback, nice little tie up there. I like it. The bizarre part is they graffiti the mall with the witch's curse and stuff, like with her wicked hand to hold her grip upon the land. And they then turn out all the lights and they've painted everything UV and they've made the blood trail UV as well. I don't know why. I literally don't know why. Like, what was the point in graffiti in the mall? And then what was the point in doing it in UV? It's just, I don't know why. Unless it's just because, oh, 90s UV neon. Ooh. I don't understand. It looks really cool. I just don't get the point of it. Then the door goes and they're all like, oh, they're here. And it turns out, nope, it's just a couple of cops who have finally someone has noticed this stolen sheriff's car is just sat outside the mall, you know, an empty mall, you know, whatever time this is, because I assume all this has happened since right at the beginning when, you know, they were driving back from the football game to this moment is all during one night. So I have no idea what time it is. I mean, it's still pitch black, so it must be like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Like, but yeah, so the cops arrive and they're killed by the milkman killer. I did kind of wonder what was going on, because why did they die? Like, presumably they're Sunnyvalers. And then I remembered in 1994 that Pete, Sam's boyfriend, the Sunnyvaler football player, is killed by a ghost killer. And it's just like, why are they going for Sunnyvalers? Like, that's not right. And if they're ghost killers, you know, like when Camp Nightwing runs right past Josh, doesn't care. So what's going on here? And then I realised that it's because they're in the way. So in the hospital, you've got Sam's by the bed, Pete's standing here, and then the ghost killer's here. So he stabs Pete, gets him out of the way. Right, I can go for Sam. And the same in this one, where he's following the blood trail, and this cop is standing right on the blood trail. So it's like, oi, get out of the way. Stabs him. And then the other cop shoots him in the back. So he sort of turns around and is like, wait, what are you doing? But yeah, so it seems to be that if you're in the way, because they've got that single mindset goal of, you know, I'm following this blood trail, I'm smelling this, that's where I'm going. You're in the way. You're just an obstacle. Move. Because then they go, the Martin, Ziggy, Josh and Dina then all sort of run to the stores, and the killers just walk past them, don't care. Just walk into the stores, they pull the shutters down. Ziggy has 2 to do. I don't know why Ziggy has 2 to do, bless her. But she goes to do the Camp Nightwing killer, and the shutter gets stuck, and it's just like, oh no, no, he's actually going to get her finally. And then she manages to get it down, and kind of not right for me, she doesn't flinch. He sort of like comes up and like slams his axe against the metal grate, and she doesn't flinch, and he's just like, I mean, that's the guy that killed your sister, killed a friend, killed loads of people at camp. I'd have thought, like, and especially if those clocks are anything to do with PTSD, which also, by the way, never explained. Literally never explained why she has all those clocks with, you know, eat dinner and go to the toilet and whatever alarm it's for, which is a bit stupid, because I assume it's a PTSD thing. But as I said, then she comes face to face with the guy that killed her sister, almost killed her plenty of times, and she doesn't even flinch, and is just like, all right, fair play. She's the one that confronts Nick when he arrives at the mall, and she's just, no words. She just says, tag, you're it. Which, decent little line, I suppose, and tips a bucket of UV blood all over him, and then they release the killers. So all of a sudden, all this blood is all over Nick, and that's what they can smell. They're going for it. I think Dina sort of sprays herself with a load of different aftershaves to sort of try and mask her smell. So they all start going towards Nick, because they're like, that's what we smell. That's what we want. That's what the devil told us to get. So they're all rushing him. He grabs hold of Ziggy and like holds her, and he's like, cool, it's up to you. If they come for me, they're going to get her as well. He then gets knifed in the back by Ghostface and like, oh, sorry, Skull Mask. Lets her go, and it's just like, well, that worked for you, didn't it? But then obviously, because she's got blood on her top, Milkman goes after her. And again, Milkman, who's the one that killed her back in 1978, she's screaming and everything, because obviously, you know, he's all over her, but she's not sort of that far worried. Like, you know, she doesn't have any sort of flashbacks to, hey, I've been here before. Like, uh-oh. You know, she's literally just screaming and holding this guy off, and it's just like, oh, okay, fair play to you. Like, you know, you've obviously grown. Like, yeah, it was a bit sort of like, So Dina cuts her hand really deeply, like big time cuts her hand, and it obviously gets all the ghosts' attention and pulls the milkman off Ziggy. So they all start going for her. Nick just runs off through this random door. He's gone. See you later. As all the ghosts are going towards Dina, Martin, Josh, and I think in the end Ziggy, like, start hitting them and stuff. Buy her enough time, she gets out. And then it kind of goes a bit crazy, because you'd have thought that they would have followed her. But they don't. They sort of like wander around, not really knowing what to do. The gang cover them in the UV blood, so they annihilate each other. So all the ghosts have got this blood on them, so obviously they just attack each other and just literally just go to town and destroy each other, which is great. Except then Ruby Lane and the little boy with the bat, who, I don't know what they've been doing. They must have been chilling down, getting a pretzel or something. They then show up And obviously they're, you know, fresh faced, brand new, they don't care. They start going towards this door where Dina ran off, and Sam also runs off. She breaks her chains or whatever. She gets through that door, and they're like, oh. So then they decide that, you know, we've got to stop these other two, but we've got no UV blood. So Josh goes out, starts fighting. Sam attacks Dina down in the tunnels. So apparently the mall is part around the tunnel. These tunnels are gigantic, I guess. So she attacks her near the devil blob monster thing. I have no idea what this blob thing is. When Josh attacks Ruby Lane, she then slashes him across the stomach quite nicely with his razor blade, and then breaks his arm. But I don't understand how she breaks his arm, because I thought it was his neck, because she's sort of holding his face and then sort of like does that, and you hear a break. And watching it today, I hear him say, "Ah, my arm." But at first I thought it was his neck, and that was it. He was done for. But I can't work out how she breaks his arm whilst holding his face. It was a bit confusing, that bit. But yeah, so then Sam's attacking Dina down underground, and she's sort of strangling her, and Dina's just like, "No, it's me. Please remember me. You love me. I love you. Please." And then Sam sort of has the flashbacks of like, "Wait, this is the girl I love. What am I doing?" So she stops it. So she sort of breaks her possessed part, which is kind of weird because she's right next to the devil that is possessing her. So you think it'd be even worse down there, like, but apparently not. Apparently she just breaks it. But then Nick's down there as well. He's got the knife. He stabs Dina, and he's sort of sitting on top of her. All the ghost killers are back to life now as well. So they're heading towards... Now this is the part that kind of doesn't make any sense. They're all heading towards Martin, Josh, and Ziggy upstairs for no reason. Like, they don't have the blood on them or anything, so don't quite know why they're after them now, unless that's just the devil downstairs. He's like, nah, it's all good down here, you just get rid of those people. I don't like them either. They run out of bullets because Ziggy's got one of the cops' guns, runs out of bullets, so they're just like, oh. And Dina and Nick are downstairs. Like, Nick's got the knife to her throat, like literally millimeters away from her throat. Don't know how he doesn't cut her. And he's just like, nope, that's it. Oh, what a shame. Girlfriend kills girlfriend and her friends. Just another shady cider. Oh. And that riles Dina up. That really riles Dina up. And so she slams his hand onto the devil blob, and he gets the same visions that Alice got in 1978 when she touched it, which was, you know, all the killers and everything going on. Now, I liked that. I thought that was clever, and it sort of like, you know, sort of sends him a bit scatty because he's just like, what have I done? Oh my God, like, you know, this is all of mine and my relatives' fault. Like, no. As much as I liked the way they ended that part, it would have, in my opinion, just me, I would have done it that Sam stabs him in the leg with either the knife, if Nick didn't have the knife to Dina's throat, or just a piece of stone or something, because, you know, it's all crumbling down here. Like, if she stabbed him in the same calf that he got axed in 1978, because I think that would give you a little bit of like comedy playback on, you know, that guy's poor calf. Like, how's this guy going to carry on walking? That's twice he's got it in there. Obviously, that would have, you know, brought him out. He would have dropped the knife or whatever, and at that point, Dina could have gone, ugh, and thrown his hand onto the blob, you know. And I just think that it would have been nice, one, for that payback of 1978, you know, same calf, like, oh. And two, because it all started in 1666 when Sarah sacrificed and it finishes with "I will never let you go," and it's dead zombie Sarah saying it, and then she just changes into Dina as the knife goes into Nick Solomon's eye. Again, a little bit gory, like, you know, maybe just stab him in the stomach. Like, you know, maybe that could be done rather than in the eye. So, you know, he goes down with a knife in his face. Dina gets Sam up and she's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And she sort of pulls her jacket open and she's wearing a stab vest made up of Fear Street books, which was just genius. Like, fair play to the writers for that. I loved that. You know, a makeshift stab vest made up with Fear Street books. It is good. I do like that part. And then when they leave the tunnels, they walk through this big house, which I assume is Nick's house, because it's through the same tunnel as they found in 1978 and Dina first found in 1666. So it seems to be Solomon's house, which was then the witch's house in 78, for which then Nick's now built his mansion on. I guess in the last 20 years, like when he's grown up, he's like, "I want to build my house there in the middle of the woods." It's a bit weird. I assume there's just a different entrance, but it looks very similar to that entrance. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, they don't find the chamber, so it might not be. This is all done by the blob, which is further down than that. So maybe they don't. Maybe they do leave a different exit, but it just looked exactly the same, and it was a bit like, that can't be the same place, because you'd have to leave through the chamber and you'd have found the book and everything, surely. Like, so they walk out of this house, and the first thing they see is, well, they see two Sunnyvalers. They both look at these two girls who are sort of bloodied, muddied, dishevelled states walking around Sunnyvale, like, "You don't belong here." Don't say a word. Guy gets into his car, reverses out, and a dustbin truck just wipes him out. Absolutely wipes him out. Now, I thought that the woman was still on the driveway and that you'd hear her scream. And then it would be like, "Oh, Sunnyvale screwed now. You ain't got your protector anymore." But she's like disappeared completely. It's just like, "Oh, okay, fine." And then, yeah, then it sort of like just sort of wraps up little bits for no reason at all. So we see Ziggy gives Nurse Lane, who is out of prison and stuff, out of a mental hospital, like whatever happened to her after she attacked Tommy. Nothing by the looks of it. She gives her the diary back from camp, which is what Ziggy found when she first went to visit her and stuff. And I don't quite understand why, unless there's other stuff in it. But if it is all witch stuff, it's like, yeah, she probably doesn't want that. Like, all you need to do is go around to Nurse Lane, give her a hug or something, and just be like, "It's over." And, you know, you could say, you know, it wasn't Ruby's fault. You could do something, because obviously she believes in the witch's possession, the curse, and all that sort of stuff, because she found the chamber. So why you wouldn't just be like, "Hey, look, it wasn't Ruby's fault," and give her a hug, something like that, if you want to close it. I don't quite understand why she gave the book back. "Hey, do you remember when you sort of went crazy and you thought you found the witch's house and stuff, and here's the memories of that, like, thanks." And then Dina takes Josh to school. He's got his armies cast. The only name on it is Martin. So it was like, wow, Dina hasn't even signed her brother's cast. Nice one. Good sis. And one thing I did wonder is, in all three of the films, obviously second one kind of not the same, but there's no sign of their dad or their mum. Now, I assume that their mum passed away or left, and it's just a single father situation, because in 1994, Dina says to Josh, like, "You know, Dad's told you not to go on AOL, it costs too much money and stuff." And he's like, "I remember those days." But there's like no sign of him. And then as they leave the house, there's a little post-it note on the wall, and it says, "Got an interview, back for dinner, don't cook, love, Dad." But again, it's a bit confusing, because it's like, well, was that the night before when you obviously didn't get back because they ordered pizza and you weren't there? And as I said, again, I assume this has all happened in one night. Hell of a lot of stuff to happen in one night. He wasn't back for dinner and hasn't come back all night, apparently, or he's gone out very early this next morning and says, "Hey, I'll be back for dinner." And it's just like, well, where the hell were you last night? Dina's made Josh some pancakes. I mean, completely burnt the hell out of them, and he's just like, "Yeah, I ain't eating that." So again, like, what? So your interview was at what, like 6 a.m. and you had to leave like really early without saying goodbye? It's just a bit sort of like, it's almost like there's an afterthought of like, oh yeah, there was a dad. Yeah, he's gone to an interview. Well, okay, well, what about yesterday? Or did he go to the interview yesterday and he literally wasn't back for dinner because he hasn't come back still? Like, it's just a bit confusing as to, it was kind of like an afterthought of, oh yeah, Dad, yeah, he's gone to an interview. Don't question it. So we go to school and Dina drops Josh off and he's like, oh, you're not coming in? She's like, no, I've got some stuff to do. I had a busy night, bro. Like, leave me alone. And then the one part of all three films that absolutely lets everything down. Everything is let down by this one moment. And that is, Martin is selling, I'm not sure what he's got. It's like a car radio or something? I can't work out what he's got. But it's just this like giant Walkman music player, whatever it is. And he's trying to sell it to the kids. And the kids are just like, I've got a like Sony Walkman, I've got a disc player, like, do one. What are you on about? And he's just like, whatever. And this girl says, you need an SSD, you need a solid state drive, you know, that'll sort out the size problems. And it's just like, oh, fair play. I did have to look up, solid state drives came out in 1991, so this is fine for 1994. Just saying. Whether they'd have been affordable in 1994 is a different question, but yeah. And she just signs Josh's cast, and it's just like, well, who are you? Because like he doesn't say like, oh hey, Jill, whatever. Like, you know, he doesn't recognise her, and she just signs his cast, and it's just like, well, that's a bit weird. And then she says, oh, well, you know, if you want to talk anytime, you know, you can find me online. And she signed the cast of at Queen of Air and Darkness. Yep. If you remember from 1994, when Josh is discussing the mall killings with Queen of Air and Darkness, and then he's sort of talking about what happened in the supermarket when Kate and Simon were killed, and, you know, this is the true story, they weren't drug dealers. No mention of her in 1978, no mention of her in 1666, no mention of her in 1994 Part 2 until this. And it is the worst payoff ever. I wouldn't say it ruined the movie for me, but I was annoyed. Because, again, kind of like the dad, it was such an afterthought of like, oh yeah, he had a pen pal. Oh, yeah, she could sign his cast and walk away. And it's just like, what was the point? Was the entire point of having Queen of Air and Darkness and that just so that you could say, oh look, in 1994 we had chat rooms, in 1994 this was Facebook Messenger, like, was that it? Just so you could show AOL and say, look, it's 1994 totally, because they got AOL. Because then there is literally no payout whatsoever. She doesn't help them defeat Sheriff Good, she doesn't do anything to do with the curse. Nothing to do with the killers, absolutely nothing, until, as I said, it just seems to be an afterthought to put in literally like the last 2 minutes of the film of, oh yeah, that was Queen of Air and Darkness. What do you want? That was the Queen of Air and Darkness. It's fine, right? It's like, no, that was just dumb. That was just stupid. Like, if they really wanted to do 1994 because it's got, you know, first starts of the internet, you could have had him searching AOL for the ghost killers or something. Or when they're discussing, you know, when he's sort of discussing the curse and the killers and they're just like, what are you going on about? And he shows them newspaper clippings, boot up AOL then. And just be like, you know, go on the computer, you know, get a little dial-up tone going. And then, look, this is what I'm on about. But having the Queen of Air and Darkness to then pretty much forget about her until literally the credits and just be like, oh yeah, she's a girl at his school. Cool, right? Like, no. So I'm upset with that. I'm upset. And then to finish the film, we have Dina and Sam at the site of Sarah Fear's grave, and Dina engraves a stone with Sarah Fear, the first Shady Sider. And then, I don't know if she leaves the knife there or not. It's a bit weird, but they have that. And then we travel during the credits, we just travel across Shadyside and everything seems much nicer, much, the mall's reopened, everyone seems happier. It's like, so much better. And then we head down into the tunnels and we head to the chamber, which is completely bare now. Like, there's no engraving in the floor, there's no engravings in the wall, it's just completely bare. There's crime scene tape up, there's little evidence, I don't know what they're called, tags, I guess, dotted around. And the book, which I did like, was the fact that it was evidence number 13 for the witch's book, is sat there and you just see a pair of hands whip it away. So there may be Fear Street Trilogy 2 to come. Hope not, because obviously it would be the same idea and it'd be like, it's the book, find the book. But my issue with that was, obviously it sets it up potentially for more or for something else, or maybe they read a story, maybe it's a narrator that's reading a story from the book about a Fear Street story that happened before. Because at the moment we still kind of have Ruby Lane-ish story to tell, although Nurse Lane did kind of explain that she went to a party and went crazy and killed people. We haven't had the Milkman story. We haven't had the guy that drowns people wearing a weird leather gas mask thing. I can't remember what his name was, but we haven't had really anything from him. And we haven't had the story of the Bat Boy. So there are some ghost killers that we haven't learnt about. Whether they would do sort of standalone films, maybe. And as I said, it's just a narration from the book. You've given these names and I've written their story in here. It's like, oh yeah, he was a milkman and he stabbed loads of people. And we'd have flashbacks to, them having a normal life and then turning. Because I remember the Bat Boy wears a mask because apparently I think he's deformed. He's a deformed child. So it's kind of like, was he picked on? Was he teased? Was he upset and then got possessed and just put this mask on for some reason? I don't know. I'd be surprised if they did films along these lines again, but obviously you just had that sort of like, oh, the book's gone, what's going to happen? But my issue with it is, why would the book be left there? If it was tagged as evidence, they'd have tagged it, photographed it, and then bagged it and taken it back to the police station. Like, they're not going to just leave something like that at the site. Like, oh yeah, there's a knife. Oh yeah, there's a book. Oh yeah, is Sheriff Good's body still down there? Like, potentially, because that wasn't in the chamber, so maybe he's been left. No one knows where he is, but because I don't think they ever say on the news, like, oh, his body was found. But yeah, it was just a bit sort of like, why would that piece of evidence just be left there? It wouldn't be. It would have been bagged and locked away. But it is what it is. Most of it was tied up nicely. As I said, personally, I'd have had Sam involved in helping to kill Nick, just so that, as I said, you get that full circle of love starting it, love ending it, love triumphs over evil and stuff. But otherwise, it was a good ending to wrap everything up. There was just bits there where it was like the Queen of Air and Darkness. It was just like, that was stupid. There was no point in that at all. But otherwise, it was a good film. I don't know if I can really give it a rating. I gave 94 a 3.5. See, I'd be tempted to give it a 3, mainly because it was short. Like, I think it's only like 45 minutes long, just to close things up. But as I said, like, the killing of Nick, in my opinion, could have been done a bit better. Obviously, you had the parts where it was like, wasn't really tied off. Like, there's a Queen of Air and Darkness and Dad's at an interview today, apparently, not yesterday, or it was yesterday and he just never came back. It was just a sort of like, as much as it was tied up, there were bits that were rushed or just literally like snipped, like not perfect. So I think I would give it a 3. It could be bumped up with a couple of adjustments just to make things a bit smoother. I mean, using the blood plan again, it works, fair enough. I quite like the callback of carrying Nick with, pouring blood over him, because obviously they spoke about Carrie when they first had their little Sparky interaction in 78. So some of it was good, some of it was eh. And as I said, the Queen of Air and Darkness bit will just grate on me for like ever, I think. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Do you think my end is better? It isn't. My end is totally better, right? Yeah, let me know. And as always, like, subscribe, tell your friends, retweets. It's all appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon. I will get the Goosebumps series started soon, so keep your eyes out for that. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.